The chiming doorbell startled Melissa Carson as she dabbed on a final touch of mascara. She glanced at her watch. 7:15 p.m. He was 15 minutes early. Smoothing down her navy blue dress, she took a deep breath and shouted, "Coming!" Her heartbeat quickened as she walked through her modest apartment, carefully stepping around her son's scattered toys. It had been 3 years since her last date. 3 years since Tyler's father had walked out on them without a backward glance. "Mommy, is that your friend?" 6-year-old Tyler peeked out from his bedroom, clutching his favorite dinosaur toy. "Yes, honey. Remember, Mrs. Jenkins next door will be here any minute to watch you." Melissa knelt down and straightened his pajama collar. "Be good, okay? I won't be home too late." Tyler nodded solemnly, his brown eyes, so like her own, wide with curiosity. Taking another steadying breath, Melissa opened the door to find a man in his mid-30s, wearing a simple button-down shirt and jeans. Jack Wilson wasn't what she had expected when her co-worker Barbara had insisted on setting her up on this blind date. He had kind blue eyes, slightly messy brown hair, and a warm smile that immediately put her at ease. Nothing about him screamed special or extraordinary, which was precisely what Melissa had requested after her ex-husband's flashy personality had left her and Tyler with nothing but heartbreak and debt. "Hi, I'm Jack. Sorry I'm early. I didn't want to be late and make a bad first impression." His voice was deep and pleasant with a slight southern twang. "No worries. I'm almost ready," Melissa replied, stepping aside to let him in. "My sitter should be here any moment." As if on cue, Mrs. Jenkins appeared at the door, her silver hair neatly styled and a warm smile on her face. After quick introductions and leaving emergency contact information, Melissa kissed Tyler goodbye and followed Jack to his car. She had expected something modest, matching his unassuming appearance. Instead, a sleek black Audi waited by the curb. "Nice car," she commented, raising an eyebrow. Jack shrugged. "It's a company car. I work in management at Carson Enterprises." "Carson? No relation to me, though I wish there was," Melissa laughed. "I've heard they treat their employees well." "They do," Jack replied, opening the passenger door for her. "How about you? Where do you work?" "I'm an executive assistant at Palmer Marketing. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills, and they're understanding when Tyler gets sick and I need to take time off." Jack nodded appreciatively as he slid into the driver's seat. "That's important when you're a single parent." Melissa studied him curiously. Most men she met either lost interest the moment they learned she had a child or pretended to be okay with it until the reality set in. Jack seemed genuinely unfazed. The restaurant Jack had chosen was charming but unpretentious, a family-owned Italian place with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wine bottles. As they settled into their corner table, Melissa felt herself relaxing. Maybe Barbara had been right about this setup after all. "So Jack, tell me about yourself. What exactly do you do at Carson Enterprises?" Melissa asked, sipping her water. "Project management," he replied, his eyes briefly flicking away. "It's mostly behind-the-scenes work, reviewing proposals, making sure things run smoothly. Nothing exciting." He quickly changed the subject. "Barbara mentioned you've been at Palmer for 5 years, almost 6 now." Melissa nodded, noticing his slight evasion, but choosing not to press. "I started as a temp right after Tyler was born and worked my way up." Their conversation flowed naturally as they shared stories about growing up. Jack in a small town in Georgia, Melissa in suburban Chicago. He listened intently as she spoke about Tyler, laughing at her tales of kindergarten mishaps and bedtime negotiations. "You're a great mom," Jack said suddenly, his eyes warm. "The way you talk about him, it's clear he's your world." Melissa felt a blush rising to her cheeks. "He is. It hasn't been easy, but he's worth every struggle." Throughout dinner, Melissa caught occasional glimpses of something deeper beneath Jack's modest demeanor. The way the restaurant owner greeted him with unusual deference, how he spoke knowledgeably about international business when the topic briefly arose, the expensive watch partially hidden under his sleeve that contradicted his otherwise simple appearance. When the waiter brought their dessert, a tiramisu, to share, he addressed Jack with a reverence that seemed excessive for a regular customer. "Mr. Jack, it's always a pleasure to serve you," the waiter said, his smile a bit too eager. "Chef Antonio insisted on preparing this himself." Jack thanked him with casual grace, But Melissa didn't miss the meaningful glance that passed between them. The waiter seemed to catch himself, nodding nervously before hurrying away. "You must come here often," Melissa remarked, dipping her spoon into the creamy dessert. Jack smiled enigmatically. "Let's just say I have a connection to this place." After dinner, they strolled through the nearby park, its pathways lit by antique lamps. The night was cool and clear, stars twinkling above them. They paused by a fountain, its water shimmering in the moonlight. "This has been really nice," Melissa admitted. "I was nervous about dating again." Jack turned to face her, his expression serious. "Can I be honest with you?" Melissa's heart sank. Here it came. The revelation that he wasn't interested in a woman with a child, or worse, that he was married. "Of course." "I haven't been completely forthcoming about myself," he began. Before he could continue, his phone rang. Jack checked the screen and frowned. "I'm sorry, I have to take this. It's work." He stepped away, speaking in low, urgent tones. Melissa caught fragments. "Tell the board I'll be there. No, don't proceed without have the papers ready by morning." When Jack returned, his relaxed demeanor had been replaced with tension. "I'm really sorry, but there's an emergency at work. I have to go in. At 9:30 on a Friday night?" Melissa couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. "It's complicated," Jack said, running a hand through his hair. "I'd like to explain everything, but not now, not like this. Can we meet again tomorrow? Lunch, maybe? You can bring Tyler if you'd like." Melissa hesitated. The evening had been going so well, and she'd felt a genuine connection with Jack. But now the familiar suspicion that had developed after years of disappointment crept back in. "Please, Melissa, I promise it's not what you think." Something in his eyes, an earnestness, a vulnerability, made her nod. "Okay. Tomorrow at noon, there's a playground cafe near my apartment called Sunshine Corner." "Tyler would like that." Jack's relief was palpable. "Perfect. I'll meet you there." As they walked back to the car, Melissa noticed a black SUV had pulled up near them, its engine idling. A man in a suit stood beside it, his posture stiff and alert. When he spotted Jack, he straightened even more. "Is that for you?" Melissa asked, nodding toward the vehicle. Jack sighed, looking genuinely regretful. "Unfortunately, yes. I'm sorry about cutting our evening short." "I had a wonderful time with you, Melissa." The sincerity in his voice made her believe him, despite the strange circumstances. "I had a good time too, Jack." He leaned in, hesitated, then placed a gentle kiss on her cheek. "Until tomorrow," he whispered. As Jack approached the SUV, the suited man opened the door and said something Melissa couldn't quite catch. But Jack's response was clear and firm. "No, I'll drive myself. Follow if you must." He turned to wave at Melissa one last time before getting into his Audi. As he drove away, the black SUV followed closely behind. On the drive back to her apartment, Melissa's mind raced with questions. Who was Jack Wilson really? The restaurant staff's deference, the expensive watch, the waiting SUV with what appeared to be a security detail. None of it aligned with the simple project manager he claimed to be. As she paid the babysitter and checked on her sleeping son, a notification lit up her phone. A news alert from the financial app she used to manage her tight budget. The headline made her freeze. Carson Enterprises CEO James Carson to announce major acquisition tomorrow. Included was a photo of the elusive billionaire, known for avoiding publicity and sending representatives to speak in his place. The image was blurry, taken from a distance, but there was no mistaking those kind blue eyes and that warm smile. Jack Wilson was James Carson, billionaire CEO of one of the country's largest corporations. And tomorrow, she was taking her son to meet him for lunch. Melissa barely slept that night. She alternated between scrolling through articles about James Jack Carson and pacing her small living room. By morning, she had learned that the 38-year-old billionaire was notoriously private, rarely appearing in public and never giving personal interviews. Business publications described him as brilliant but enigmatic, having transformed his late father's struggling manufacturing company into a global conglomerate in just 7 years. Most intriguingly, he was known for his unconventional management style, including working undercover in various departments of his own company to better understand operations from the ground up. But why would such a powerful man deceive a single mother on a blind date? "Mommy, are we really meeting your friend today?" Tyler asked over breakfast, milk dribbling down his chin. Melissa wiped his face with a napkin, her mind still racing. "Yes, sweetie. His name is Jack, and we're going to have lunch with him at Sunshine Corner." "The one with the big slide?" Tyler's eyes lit up. "That's the one." She smiled, pushing aside her confusion to focus on her son's excitement. "Now finish your cereal, so we can get ready." At 11:45, Melissa and Tyler arrived at the Playground Cafe, a cheerful establishment with indoor seating adjacent to a fenced play area. Tyler immediately spotted the spiral slide and tugged at his mother's hand. "Can I go play, please?" "Let's wait for Jack first, okay?" Melissa scanned the cafe, her nerves on edge. She had chosen a casual outfit, jeans and a simple blouse, wanting to appear unaffected by her discovery. At precisely noon, the cafe door opened and Jack walked in. Gone was yesterday's button-down shirt, replaced with a plain grey t-shirt and worn jeans. His hair was even messier today, as if he'd been running his hands through it nervously. When he spotted Melissa and Tyler, his face lit up with a genuine smile that made her heart skip despite her reservations. "You came?" he said, relief evident in his voice as he approached their table. "I wasn't sure you would." "I considered standing you up," Melissa admitted. "But I thought you deserved a chance to explain why the CEO of Carson Enterprises pretended to be a regular employee on our date." Jack winced. "Right to the point. I appreciate that." He knelt down to eye level with Tyler. "And you must be the famous Tyler. Your mum told me a lot about you. I heard you like dinosaurs." Tyler, uncharacteristically shy, nodded and moved slightly behind Melissa's leg. "What if I told you I know where they keep the chocolate dinosaur cookies here?" Jack whispered conspiratorially. Tyler's eyes widened with interest. "Really? Really? Should we go find them while your mom gets us a table?" Tyler looked up at Melissa for permission. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "Stay where I can see you." As Jack took Tyler's hand and led him to the counter, Melissa watched them closely. The Billionaire CEO moved with easy confidence, clearly comfortable interacting with children. He didn't talk down to Tyler but engaged him as an equal, listening intently to the boy's suddenly animated chatter about his favorite dinosaurs. When they returned with cookies and drinks, Tyler was giggling at something Jack had said. The boy climbed into the seat next to Jack, instead of his usual spot beside Melissa, a small betrayal that stung more than it should have. "Tyler, why don't you go try that slide while I talk to Jack for a few minutes?" "I can see you from here," Melissa suggested, noticing other children playing in the enclosed area. Once Tyler was happily climbing the ladder to the slide, Melissa fixed Jack with a stern look. "Explain." Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she'd noticed the night before. "My name is James Carson, though friends do call me Jack. Everything else I told you was true. Where I grew up, my interests, my thoughts. The only thing I lied about was my position at the company." "But why?" Melissa pressed. "What's the point of pretending to be someone else?" "Do you know what happens when people find out I'm worth billions?" Jack asked, his blue eyes suddenly weary. "They change. What they say, how they act, everything becomes calculated. They either want something from me or try to impress me. It's impossible to know who's genuine." He took a sip of his coffee before continuing. "Barbara is one of the few people who know me as just Jack. We grew up together in Georgia. When she described you, I was intrigued. A hard-working single mom with integrity and no interest in status or wealth. Her words, not mine. But I knew if you agreed to a date with James Carson, Billionaire CEO rather than Jack Wilson, project manager, I'd never know if you were interested in me or my bank account." Melissa watched Tyler going down the slide, his delighted laughter carrying across the cafe. "So this was some kind of test?" "Not intentionally," Jack replied, looking genuinely remorseful. "It started as self-protection, but I realize now how unfair it was to you. I should have been honest from the beginning." "Yes, you should have." Melissa's voice was firm but not angry. "Trust goes both ways, Jack, or James, or whatever you want to be called." "Jack, please. Only board members and the press call me James." He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I'm sorry, Melissa. If it helps, I was about to tell you the truth when that call came in." She raised an eyebrow skeptically. "I swear," he insisted. "Ask Martin." My head of security, who was waiting in the SUV. I told him I was coming clean. Melissa took a moment to process this. And the emergency that cut our date short? Jack grimaced. Unfortunately, that was real. Carson Enterprises is acquiring Palmer Marketing, your company. The board called an emergency meeting because some last-minute issues came up with the deal. Melissa froze. You're buying Palmer? Then you really are my boss. Technically, I own the company that's buying the company you work for, he corrected gently. But yes, that complicates things even further. Complicates things, Jack, this is insane. Melissa's voice rose slightly before she caught herself, glancing to ensure Tyler was still playing happily. Do you realize how this looks? A billionaire boss dating his employee after lying about his identity. When you put it that way, it sounds pretty bad, Jack admitted. But Melissa, I had no idea you worked for Palmer when we met. Barbara never mentioned where you worked, and by the time you told me, I already liked you too much to just walk away. His sincerity was difficult to doubt, but Melissa had learned the hard way that charm could mask deception. How convenient. It's the truth. Check the acquisition timeline if you don't believe me. We've been working on this deal for months, long before Barbara suggested setting us up. Tyler ran back to their table, breathless with excitement. Mom, did you see how fast I went down the big slide? Melissa forced a smile. I did, sweetie. You were like lightning. Jack, will you come play with me? Tyler asked, surprising both adults. Jack glanced at Melissa, silently asking permission. After a moment, she nodded. For the next half hour, Melissa watched as the billionaire CEO chased her son around the playground, helped him across the monkey bars, and caught him at the bottom of the slide. Jack seemed completely present, his focus entirely on making Tyler laugh, with no sign of the distracted businessman checking his phone every few minutes, as her ex-husband had done on the rare occasions he'd spent time with their son. When they finally returned to the table, both flushed and grinning, Tyler announced, Mom, Jack is my new best friend. He knows all about dinosaurs. Does he now? Melissa smiled despite herself. Just the basics, Jack said modestly. Though I'm pretty rusty on my Cretaceous period facts. That's when T-Rex lived, Tyler informed him importantly. See? You're already teaching me new things, Jack responded, making Tyler beam with pride. After Tyler had devoured his lunch and returned to the playground, Jack turned serious again. Melissa, I understand if you want nothing more to do with me. What I did was wrong, regardless of my reasons. But I want you to know that last night was the most genuine connection I've felt with someone in years. If there's any chance you might consider giving me another opportunity to earn your trust, I'd be grateful. Melissa studied him thoughtfully. I need time to think, Jack. This is a lot to process. Of course, he nodded. Take all the time you need. As he reached for his water glass, his sleeve pulled back, revealing an angry red scar running from his wrist up his forearm. Noticing her gaze, Jack quickly tugged his sleeve down. What happened there? Melissa asked. Jack hesitated. It's from my time working the assembly line at one of our manufacturing plants last year. I was trying to understand why workplace accidents had increased. Turned out the safety protocols looked good on paper, but weren't practical in real conditions. A shadow crossed his face. 3 workers had been seriously injured before I went undercover. After my accident, we redesigned the entire process. No injuries since. Melissa's perception shifted slightly. This didn't sound like a publicity stunt or a boss playing at being an employee. You could have been killed. The point is, those workers could have been killed and management wasn't listening to their concerns. Jack's voice was quiet but intense. My father built the company on the principle that every employee matters. I won't dishonor his legacy by becoming the kind of CEO who sees people as replaceable parts. Before Melissa could respond, her phone rang. It was Mrs. Jenkins, her babysitter. Sorry, I need to take this, she said, stepping away from the table. The elderly woman sounded distressed. Melissa, dear, I hate to bother you, but there's water coming through my ceiling from your apartment. I think a pipe burst. Oh no, I'll be right there, Melissa promised, ending the call and rushing back to Jack. I have to go. There's a plumbing emergency at my apartment. Jack immediately stood. Let me help. I can— No, Melissa cut him off firmly. This isn't your problem. At least let me drive you and Tyler home, he offered. After a moment's hesitation, she agreed. The drive back to her apartment was tense, with Tyler chattering happily in the back seat, oblivious to the adult's discomfort. When they arrived, Melissa found Mrs. Jenkins waiting outside with several other tenants. Water was indeed seeping from under her door. "The super's on vacation," one neighbor informed her grimly. "Won't be back until Monday." "I know a plumber who can be here in 20 minutes, Jack offered, already pulling out his phone. Melissa wanted to refuse, to handle this on her own as she always did. But with water potentially damaging her few possessions and no super available, she swallowed her pride and nodded. True to his word, a plumbing service arrived promptly. As the workers addressed the burst pipe, Jack kept Tyler entertained in the building's small courtyard, giving Melissa space to deal with the crisis. When she finally joined them, exhausted but relieved that the damage was minimal, Jack handed her a business card. "My personal number," he explained. "Not my assistant's or my office. Just me. Use it if you need anything or if you decide you want to talk again." As he turned to leave, Tyler suddenly hugged his legs. "Thank you for playing dinosaurs with me, Jack. Are you coming back tomorrow?" Jack knelt down to Tyler's level. "That's up to your mom, buddy. But I hope I see you again soon." He stood, met Melissa's gaze one last time and walked to his car without looking back. That night, after putting Tyler to bed, Melissa sat on her couch staring at Jack's card. The plumbing service had refused payment, saying it was taken care of. She should have been angry at his presumption, but found herself instead wondering about the man who would lie about being a billionaire rather than use his wealth to impress a date, yet wouldn't hesitate to help a virtual stranger in need. As she debated whether to call him, her phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Heard through corporate grapevine that Palmer employees are nervous about the acquisition. Want to know the truth? No jobs will be cut. I don't acquire companies to strip them. I grow them. Just thought you might want to share that with your colleagues on Monday. Jack." Melissa stared at her phone, torn between lingering mistrust and growing curiosity about the complex man behind the message. Monday morning arrived with a flurry of rumors at Palmer Marketing. The acquisition by Carson Enterprises was now public knowledge, and the office buzzed with speculation about layoffs and restructuring. Melissa sat at her desk, watching co-workers huddle in nervous clusters. "I heard they're cutting the entire creative department," whispered Denise from accounting as she passed Melissa's desk. "My cousin works at Riverton Media, and Carson gutted their staff when they took over." Melissa frowned. This contradicted what Jack had told her, but she hesitated to share his message. How could she explain having the CEO's personal assurance without revealing their connection? "Attention, everyone," called Howard Palmer, the company founder, emerging from his office. At 65, with silver hair and a perpetually worried expression, he looked especially strained today. "As you know, Carson Enterprises has acquired Palmer Marketing. Their representatives will be here at 10 for an all-hands meeting. Please continue your work until then." Melissa's phone vibrated with a text from Jack. "We'll be at Palmer today with transition team. Don't worry." She stared at the message, uncertain how to respond. Their strange lunch had left her confused about her feelings toward him. Tyler, however, had talked about nothing but Mommy's friend Jack all weekend, asking repeatedly when they would see him again. At precisely 10 o'clock, the elevator doors opened and a group of suits entered the office. Leading them was a tall woman with sharp features and a no-nonsense demeanor. Behind her walked Jack, dressed in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that transformed him from the casual man at the playground into every inch the powerful CEO. Several executives followed, clutching portfolios and tablets. "Good morning," the woman announced. "I'm Victoria Winters, Chief Operations Officer at Carson Enterprises. This is our CEO, James Carson." Jack stepped forward, his expression professionally neutral as his gaze swept across the room. When his eyes met Melissa's, they lingered for just a fraction of a second longer, but his face revealed nothing. "Thank you all for your attention," Jack began, his voice commanding but warm. "I know acquisitions create uncertainty, so let me address your most pressing concern immediately. There will be no layoffs at Palmer Marketing." A collective sigh of relief rippled through the office. "In fact," Jack continued, "we plan to expand this office by 20% over the next year. Palmer Marketing has an excellent reputation and talented staff. That's why we wanted you to join the Carson family of companies." As Jack outlined the transition plan, Melissa observed her colleagues' reactions, shifting from fear to cautious optimism. He was articulate and thoughtful, addressing concerns before they were raised, and emphasizing the opportunities the acquisition would create. "Mr. Palmer will remain as president of Palmer Marketing," Jack announced, clapping the older man on the shoulder. "His leadership and vision built this company, and we value his continued guidance." Howard Palmer, who had arrived that morning expecting to be pushed into retirement, looked stunned but pleased. After the presentation, Jack and his team began touring the office. Melissa kept her head down, focusing intently on her computer screen as they approached her department. She could hear Victoria Winters explaining the organizational structure to Jack, as if he weren't intimately familiar with it already. "And this is our executive assistant team," Victoria said, stopping beside Melissa's desk. "They support our department heads and Mr. Palmer." "Impressive efficiency," Jack remarked. "I'd like to know more about your workflow systems." Melissa reluctantly looked up to find Jack watching her expectantly. She realized with a start that he was giving her an opportunity to showcase her work. "We implemented a new project management system last quarter," she explained, switching to a professional tone. "It's increased our departmental coordination by 30% and reduced missed deadlines by half." "Impressive," Jack nodded, maintaining his businesslike demeanor. "Would you mind giving me a brief demonstration?" For the next few minutes, Melissa walked through the system she'd helped develop, acutely aware of Jack's attention and Victoria's growing impatience. "Thank you, Miss Carson," Melissa supplied. "Melissa Carson. No relation, I assume?" Victoria asked with a thin smile. "None whatsoever," Melissa confirmed, meeting Jack's eyes briefly. "Miss Carson has been instrumental in our administrative overhaul," Howard Palmer interjected, appearing at Victoria's elbow. "One of our most valuable team members." Jack's expression remained professional, but Melissa caught the hint of a smile in his eyes. "Duly noted, Mr. Palmer. Now shall we continue to marketing?" As the group moved away, Melissa's phone buzzed again. "Dinner tonight? Need to talk. Important." She stared at Jack's message, torn between curiosity and caution. After a moment's deliberation, she typed back, "Can't. No sitter for Tyler." His response came immediately. "Bring him. Casual place near zoo. He mentioned wanting to go there." Melissa sighed, knowing Tyler would be ecstatic. 7 p.m. Text me address. Throughout the day, Melissa observed the transformation taking place around her. The initial fear had given way to excitement as details of Carson's plans emerged. Investment in new technology, expanded client services, even improved benefits. By afternoon, the office atmosphere had shifted dramatically. "He's nothing like I expected," Barbara commented, stopping by Melissa's desk. "James Carson, I mean. Everyone says he's brilliant but cold. He seemed almost human." Melissa merely nodded, unwilling to share her complicated thoughts about Jack with the friend who had set up their date. "So, how was your date with Jack Wilson?" Barbara asked, changing the subject. "I've been dying to know, but you haven't said a word." Melissa froze. "You know Jack Wilson?" "My old friend from Georgia. Known him forever. He's the one I set you up with." Barbara looked at her strangely. "Did he not show up?" "He showed," Melissa said carefully. "Hayu never mentioned he works for Carson Enterprises." Barbara waved dismissively. "Oh, he's been with them for ages. Brilliant guy, but married to his job. That's why he's still single at 38. I thought you two would hit it off. You're both so dedicated to what you do." Melissa's mind raced. Barbara clearly had no idea that Jack Wilson and James Carson were the same person, which meant Jack had been lying to his old friend as well. "We had a nice time," Melissa said neutrally. "I'm not sure if it will go anywhere." "Well, don't write him off too quickly," Barbara advised. "Good men are hard to find, especially ones who won't be scared off by a package deal." At 6:45 that evening, Melissa and an excited Tyler arrived at the casual restaurant Jack had suggested. Located near the city zoo, it was decorated with whimsical animal murals and featured a small indoor play area. Jack was already waiting, back in casual clothes, jeans and a Henley shirt that made him look more like the Jack Wilson she'd first met than the imposing CEO from earlier that day. "Jack!" Tyler exclaimed, running toward him. "Mom said we might see you again." Jack grinned, high-fiving the boy. "Hey, buddy, hungry? They make the best macaroni and cheese here." As Tyler chatted excitedly about his day at school, Melissa studied Jack's face. He seemed genuinely delighted by her son's company, asking thoughtful questions and responding with appropriate enthusiasm to Tyler's 6-year-old logic. Once they had ordered, and Tyler was happily coloring the kids' menu, Jack turned to Melissa. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." "Tyler wouldn't have forgiven me if I'd said no," she replied. "He's been asking about you constantly." Jack's expression softened. "He's a great kid." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "Melissa, about today at the office. I saw Barbara after your tour," Melissa interrupted. "She has no idea who you really are, does she? Her old friend Jack Wilson and James Carson are complete strangers in her mind." Jack winced. "It's complicated." "Explain it to me," Melissa challenged. "Because from where I'm sitting, you've been lying to everyone, including people who care about you." Jack glanced at Tyler to ensure he was absorbed in his coloring before responding. "Barbara and I grew up together in Georgia, just like I told you. Her family lived next door to my grandmother. Every summer when I visited, we'd hang out. She knew me as Jack, my middle name, James Jackson Carson. My father was also James, so family called me Jack to avoid confusion." He took a sip of water before continuing. "When my father's company started growing, he became paranoid about kidnapping threats. He was convinced I'd be a target if people knew I was his son. So when I was with my grandmother in Georgia, I used my middle name and my mother's maiden name, Wilson. No one there knew my father was James Carson of Carson Manufacturing." "But you're an adult now," Melissa pointed out. "Why maintain the deception?" "After college, I worked my way up in the company without using the Carson name. I wanted to succeed on my own merits, not as the boss's son. By the time I took over after my father's death, I had two separate identities, James Carson in the business world, and Jack Wilson to the few people who knew me before the company became what it is today." "Including Barbara," Melissa concluded. Jack nodded. "I've maintained the separation partly out of habit, partly because it's nice having people who don't see me as a billionaire CEO. Barbara never connected the dots because the James Carson she sees in business news is nothing like the Jack Wilson she grew up with." Their conversation paused as their food arrived, and Tyler required help cutting his chicken tenders. Melissa mulled over Jack's explanation, finding it both plausible and troubling. "So which one is real?" she finally asked. "Jack Wilson or James Carson?" "Both? Neither?" He shrugged. "The truth is somewhere in between. Jack is who I am when I'm not wearing the CEO hat. James is the public figure who runs Carson Enterprises. I'm just a guy trying to balance both." Tyler tugged on Jack's sleeve. "Can we go to the zoo this weekend? Mom says they have real dinosaur bones." "That's up to your mom," Jack replied, glancing at Melissa. "Please, Mom," Tyler begged, turning his best puppy dog eyes on her. "We'll see," she hedged, not ready to commit to another outing. After dinner, while Tyler played in the restaurant's small play area, Jack leaned closer to Melissa. "There's something else I needed to tell you, the real reason I asked to meet tonight." His serious tone alarmed her. "What is it?" "Victoria Winters, my COO who you met today, has been investigating a discrepancy in Palmer's accounts. Before I stepped in, she was planning to recommend an audit of the entire administrative department, including you." Melissa stiffened. "There's nothing to find." "I've done nothing wrong." "I know that," Jack assured her, "but Victoria is thorough to the point of ruthlessness. She discovered that $50,000 was transferred from Palmer's operational account to a personal account last year. The trail leads to someone with administrative access." "That's impossible. We all have different access codes," Melissa protested. "Any transfer requires dual authorization." Jack nodded. "Exactly why it caught Victoria's attention. Someone with high-level access circumvented the system. I convinced her to let me handle it personally, instead of launching a full investigation that would cast suspicion on innocent employees." Melissa's mind raced through possibilities. Only a handful of people had the necessary access: herself, the other executive assistants, Howard Palmer, and the CFO, Richard Barnes. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Because I need your help," Jack admitted. "You know the internal systems better than anyone. If we work together quietly, we can identify the culprit without creating panic or wrongly accusing someone." Melissa studied his face, looking for signs of deception. "And if I refuse? Then Victoria continues her investigation her way, which involves questioning everyone in administration and reviewing all financial activities for the past 18 months. He sighed. "I'm not threatening you, Melissa. I'm trying to protect Palmer's employees from unnecessary stress during the transition, and yes, I'm asking you because I trust you. You barely know me, she pointed out. I'm a good judge of character, Jack countered. It's how I've built my company. I know integrity when I see it. Before Melissa could respond, Tyler returned from the play area, yawning widely. I'm tired, Mommy. Time to go home, she agreed, gathering their belongings. Say goodbye to Jack. Tyler hugged Jack impulsively. Bye, Jack. Don't forget about the zoo. I won't, buddy, Jack promised, ruffling the boy's hair. Outside the restaurant, Jack walked them to their car. As Melissa buckled Tyler into his booster seat, Jack waited patiently. I'll help you, she said finally, closing the car door to keep Tyler from overhearing. But not for you or your company, for my co-workers who don't deserve to be under suspicion. Thank you, Jack said simply. I'll have my assistant send over the relevant files tomorrow. As Melissa drove home, her mind whirled with conflicting thoughts. Was Jack genuinely concerned about protecting innocent employees? Or was there something he wasn't telling her? And why involve her specifically in the investigation? The next morning, a courier delivered a sealed package to her apartment before she'd even left for work. Inside was a secure laptop and a note in Jack's handwriting. Everything you need is here. Password is Tyler's birthday. Call the secure number below when you're ready to discuss. Thank you for trusting me. Melissa stared at the note, realizing with a shock that she had never told Jack when Tyler's birthday was. Melissa stood frozen in her living room, staring at the note. How did Jack know Tyler's birthday? Had he been investigating her? The thought sent a chill down her spine. Setting the laptop aside, she grabbed her phone and dialed the secure number. Jack Carson, he answered on the first ring. How do you know my son's birthday? Melissa demanded without preamble. A pause. Barbara told me when she set us up. She said you were planning a dinosaur-themed party for his 7th birthday next month. Melissa exhaled slowly. The explanation made sense. Barbara had been helping her plan Tyler's party. I thought that I was spying on you. Jack's voice was gentle. I understand your suspicion. I haven't given you much reason to trust me. No, you haven't, Melissa agreed, glancing at the clock. I need to get Tyler to school and get to work. I'll look at the files tonight. Actually, you don't need to go to Palmer today, Jack said. I've arranged for you to work remotely on this project. Howard thinks you're helping with integration documentation. You had no right to do that without asking me, Melissa snapped. You're right. I'm sorry, Jack conceded immediately. Old habits of making executive decisions. Would you prefer to work from the office? I can rearrange things. Melissa considered her options. Working from home would allow her to focus without curious co-workers wondering what she was doing, and she wouldn't have to face Barbara after last night's revelations. No, I'll work from home, but Jack, don't make decisions about my job without consulting me again. Understood, he replied, sounding genuinely contrite. Thank you, Melissa. This means a lot. After dropping Tyler at school, Melissa returned home and opened the laptop. The password worked, revealing a folder of financial records, email correspondence, and system access logs from Palmer Marketing. She spent hours combing through the data, her administrative experience helping her spot irregularities that might escape others. By mid-afternoon, a pattern emerged. Small amounts had been siphoned from various accounts over 18 months, culminating in the larger $50,000 transfer that had triggered Victoria's suspicions. All the transfers had one thing in common. They occurred immediately after system updates implemented by Richard Barnes, Palmer's CFO. Melissa was so absorbed in her investigation that she jumped when her phone rang. Found anything? Jack asked. Maybe, she replied cautiously. But I need more information. Does Carson Enterprises store backup data from acquired companies? Yes, we maintain independent backups as part of due diligence. Why? I need to see Palmer's financial records from before these system updates began. If my hunch is right, the pattern started earlier but was better concealed. I'll have them sent over right away, Jack promised. Melissa, if you've found something, you're proving Victoria wrong. She was convinced it would take weeks to unravel this. I know these systems inside and out, Melissa said, a hint of pride in her voice. And I know our people. Whoever did this knew exactly when the security protocols would be temporarily down during updates. 2 hours later, Melissa had confirmation. The additional records showed a clear trail leading to Richard Barnes. The CFO had been embezzling funds for over 2 years, gradually increasing the amounts as he grew bolder. She called Jack back. "It's Barnes. I'm certain of it." "You're sure you can prove it?" Jack asked. "Beyond any doubt. His digital fingerprints are all over this once you know what to look for." "I need you to present your findings at Carson headquarters tomorrow morning," Jack said. "Victoria and our security team will want to hear directly from you before we take action." Melissa hesitated. "I can't. Tomorrow is Tyler's field trip to the Science Museum. I promised I'd chaperone." There was a brief silence before Jack responded. "Bring him. We have a childcare center at headquarters for employees' kids. He can join after the field trip. This is important, Melissa. You found what Victoria's entire team couldn't." The next morning, after accompanying Tyler's class to the museum, Melissa dropped him at the surprisingly elaborate childcare facility at Carson Enterprises headquarters. The center was equipped with learning stations, play areas, and even a small planetarium. "Mom, they have a real dinosaur skeleton!" Tyler exclaimed, pointing to a fossil replica in the center's science corner. "Can I stay here forever?" Melissa laughed, her tension momentarily forgotten. "Just for a few hours while Mommy has a meeting." "With Jack?" Tyler asked hopefully. "Yes, with Jack and some other people," she confirmed. A friendly staff member approached. "You must be Tyler. I heard you like dinosaurs. We're making fossil imprints this afternoon." As Tyler was led away, already chatting excitedly about his favorite prehistoric creatures, Melissa straightened her blouse and headed to the executive floor. Jack was waiting by the elevator. "Thank you for coming," he said, guiding her toward a conference room. "Victoria is impressed by how quickly you uncovered this." "Don't thank me yet," Melissa replied. "I'm still not entirely comfortable with any of this." The meeting was intimidating. Victoria Winters, 2 security specialists, and Carson's legal counsel listened intently as Melissa presented her findings. She walked them through the evidence step by step, showing how Barnes had exploited system vulnerabilities during updates to transfer funds to offshore accounts. "Impressive work, Ms. Carson," Victoria acknowledged when Melissa finished. "If you ever want to leave administrative work, our security team could use someone with your attention to detail." "Thank you, but I'm happy with my current role," Melissa replied, catching Jack's small smile at her response. "Next steps are clear," Victoria continued briskly. "We'll freeze Barnes's access immediately and involve law enforcement. Mr. Palmer needs to be informed." "I'd like Melissa to be present when we tell Howard," Jack interjected. "She deserves credit for uncovering this." Victoria nodded curtly and left to make arrangements, followed by the rest of the team. Suddenly alone with Jack, Melissa felt the tension that had been building between them. "You were remarkable in there," Jack said quietly. "I just did what needed to be done," Melissa demurred. "What happens to Barnes now? That's up to law enforcement, but embezzlement of this magnitude typically means prison time." Jack moved closer. "Melissa, there's something else I need to tell you." Before he could continue, Victoria returned. "Mr. Palmer is on his way, and the security team has just informed me that Barnes appears to have emptied his office last night. He may be attempting to flee." Jack immediately shifted to CEO mode. "Alert airport security and put a freeze on his personal accounts. We need to—" He was interrupted by a commotion outside the conference room. Howard Palmer burst in, his face ashen. "James, they're saying Richard has been stealing from the company? I can't believe it. He's been with me for 15 years. "I'm afraid it's true, Howard," Jack said gently. "Melissa has uncovered irrefutable evidence." As Howard sank into a chair, clearly devastated, Melissa methodically walked him through her findings again. The older man's expression changed from disbelief to hurt to anger. "All these years," Howard murmured, "I trusted him completely." "It's not your fault," Melissa assured him. Barnes was very sophisticated in covering his tracks. A security officer appeared at the door. "Mr. Carson, we've located Barnes. He's attempting to board a flight to Buenos Aires." "Have him detained," Jack ordered. "Tell him we have everything." As the situation unfolded, Melissa slipped away to check on Tyler. She found him happily making plaster casts of dinosaur footprints with other children. Watching him, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The mystery was solved. Her colleagues were no longer under suspicion, and she had proven her value beyond her administrative role. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jack. "All handled. Barnes in custody. Can we talk when you're free?" She replied simply, Tyler and I will wait in the lobby. 20 minutes later, Jack found them examining the elaborate model of Carson Enterprises' global operations that dominated the headquarters lobby. He had shed his suit jacket and loosened his tie, looking more like the Jack that Tyler had bonded with. "Jack!" Tyler exclaimed. "Did you see the dinosaurs upstairs? They let me keep a T-Rex footprint I made." "That's awesome, buddy," Jack grinned, genuinely interested as Tyler proudly displayed his plaster creation. "Tyler, why don't you sit over there for a minute while I talk to Jack?" Melissa suggested, pointing to a nearby bench within eyesight. Once Tyler was settled with his dinosaur book, Melissa turned to Jack. "Barnes confessed?" "Immediately, once he knew what we had," Jack confirmed. "Howard's in shock, but he's grateful to you." "So am I." Melissa nodded, then asked the question that had been nagging at her. "Why me, Jack? Why involve me in this investigation? Victoria has an entire security team." Jack's expression grew serious. "Because I needed someone who knew Palmer's systems intimately, but wasn't part of the inner circle that might have been protecting Barnes. And because, despite my deception about my identity, I truly do trust you." "Trust is earned," Melissa pointed out. "And you started our relationship with a lie." "I know." Jack ran a hand through his hair, that now familiar, nervous gesture. "But I'm hoping you'll give me the chance to earn your trust properly. No more secrets, no more dual identities." Melissa studied his face. "And what would that chance look like? Dinner? A real date where you know exactly who I am, billionaire CEO and all? And if I say no, then I respect your decision," Jack said simply. "Your job at Palmer is secure regardless. In fact, Victoria suggested you might be interested in heading up a new internal security division we're creating. The position comes with a substantial raise and more flexible hours for Tyler." Melissa raised an eyebrow. "Are you trying to bribe me into dating you?" Jack laughed. "No, the job offer stands regardless of your personal decision about me. Victoria doesn't even know about us. She was genuinely impressed by your work." Before Melissa could respond, Tyler returned, tugging at Jack's sleeve. "Jack, can we go to the zoo now? You promised, remember?" Jack looked questioningly at Melissa. "That depends on your mom." Melissa looked from her hopeful son to the man who had entered their lives so unexpectedly. Despite his initial deception, Jack had proven himself to be thoughtful, kind to Tyler, and genuinely concerned for Palmer's employees. The way he balanced being a powerful CEO with getting down on his knees to play with a 6-year-old spoke volumes about his character. "The zoo closes in 3 hours, she said finally. "If we're going, we should leave now." Tyler cheered as Jack's face broke into a relieved smile. "I'll have my driver bring the car around," he offered, before catching himself. "Unless you'd prefer to drive separately?" "One car is fine," Melissa decided. "But Jack, this doesn't mean I've made a decision about that dinner." "Understood," he nodded, the hope in his eyes unmistakable. "One step at a time." 6 months later, Melissa stood on the balcony of a beachfront villa, watching Jack and Tyler build an elaborate sandcastle at the water's edge. The Caribbean breeze ruffled her hair as she smiled at their antics. Tyler was directing operations with the authority of a miniature foreman, while Jack dutifully carried buckets of water and packed sand into tower shapes. So much had changed since that fateful blind date. Melissa now headed Carson Enterprises' new data security division, a role that challenged her professionally while providing the flexibility she needed as a single mother. Howard Palmer had retired comfortably, the Palmer marketing offices had expanded as promised, and Richard Barnes was serving time for embezzlement. Most surprisingly, Jack had gradually become an integral part of their lives. He had kept his word about no more secrets, patiently earning Melissa's trust one day at a time. He attended Tyler's school events whenever possible, introduced them to his grandmother in Georgia, who adored Tyler instantly, and never once used his wealth or position to try to impress Melissa. Instead, he showed her who he truly was, neither just Jack Wilson nor just James Carson, but a complex man trying to balance responsibility with personal happiness. "Mom, come see our castle," Tyler called, waving excitedly. "Jack made a moat that really works." Melissa joined them on the beach, admiring their creation. "Very impressive engineers." "Tyler did the architectural design," Jack grinned, sand covering his expensive swimming trunks. "I'm just the labor." "Can we come back tomorrow and make it even bigger?" Tyler asked, eyes bright with excitement. "We have 3 more days here," Melissa reminded him. Plenty of time for more castles. As Tyler ran off to collect seashells for decoration, Jack took Melissa's hand. Happy? Very, she admitted, leaning against his shoulder. Though I still can't believe you bought an entire island just so we could have a private vacation. I didn't buy it, Jack corrected her. I already owned it. Besides, Tyler said he wanted to see real crabs, and the beaches here have the best tide pools. Melissa laughed. You're spoiling him. I'm spoiling all of us, Jack countered, pulling her close. After the year we've had, we deserve it. That evening, after Tyler had fallen asleep, exhausted from his day of beach adventures, Melissa and Jack sat on the villa's terrace under a canopy of stars. Jack seemed unusually nervous, fidgeting with his watch. Something on your mind? Melissa asked. Actually, yes. Jack took a deep breath. I've been thinking about us, about how much my life has changed since Barbara set me up on that blind date with you. Mine too, Melissa acknowledged softly. I never expected to find someone who would see me for who I really am, not what I own or what I do, Jack continued. You've never been impressed by my wealth or position. If anything, those things made you more suspicious of me. Melissa smiled. You weren't exactly forthcoming about them. True, he chuckled. But even after you knew, you treated me like any other man. You called me out when I was wrong. You made me earn your trust. You never asked for anything. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I love you, Melissa. I love Tyler. You've created a family where I finally feel like myself. Not Jack Wilson, not James Carson, just me. I want to spend my life with both of you if you'll have me. He opened the box to reveal a beautiful but understated diamond ring. Will you marry me? Tears filled Melissa's eyes as she looked at the man who had entered their lives under false pretenses, but had proven his true character through actions, not words. Tyler and I are a package deal, she reminded him. I'm counting on it, Jack smiled. I already asked for his permission. You asked my 6-year-old for permission to marry me? Melissa laughed through her tears. 7-year-old, Jack corrected. His birthday was last week, remember? And yes, I did. He said yes, by the way, but only if I promised to help him build a real dinosaur park someday. What did you tell him? Melissa asked, curious. I told him we might not be able to build Jurassic Park, but we could certainly fund some paleontological digs and maybe create the best dinosaur museum in the country. Jack shrugged. Seemed like a reasonable compromise. Melissa shook her head in amazement. You're something else, Jack Carson. Is that a yes? He asked hopefully. Instead of answering, Melissa leaned forward and kissed him deeply. When they finally parted, she whispered, That's a yes. But I'm keeping my job. No trophy wife role for me. I wouldn't have it any other way, Jack assured her, slipping the ring onto her finger. Partners in everything. As they sat together under the stars, Melissa reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. From a blind date with a man pretending to be ordinary, through corporate intrigue and embezzlement schemes, to finding love that was real and lasting. Sometimes, she thought, the most extraordinary things happen when you least expect them, and sometimes a simple man turns out to be exactly what you need, billionaire boss or not.